out, everybody.
What's up, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Lights Out. I'm Josh.
I'm Ian.
And Daniel is not here today. He's actually out. But Tom, you've seen him a few times, at least here on Lights Out. He is joining us today to help us out with cameras and production. But today we're going to be diving into the case that has taken Netflix by storm. You've probably seen this documentary already. I mean, it hits you right as soon as you log into Netflix. Yeah. But this is the Taylor Parker case. The documentary is called Maternal Instinct. And I just got to say, this has got to be one of the most appalling, atrocious crimes I've ever seen.
Absolutely. I mean, I was watching it with my girlfriend and we were both just kind of crying by the end. It's unfathomable. But on top of that, it's part of, I wouldn't say a larger trend, but there are other cases like this.
Yeah, I mean, we're dealing with somebody who is an extreme pathological liar, somebody who I believe is just consumed by evil at this point and only cares about herself. Taylor Parker is one of the most despicable humans I've ever come across. And in doing this show for a number of years now, I'm not saying that lightly. I think she is up there with some of the most horrific human beings to ever live. What she did to this poor woman who was her friend,
right,
is beyond comprehension. It is truly disturbing on so many different levels, extremely graphic, and it's horrible. It's just a horrible, horrible tragedy that happened, and it was all preventable. And what it comes down to is, what the hell is wrong with Taylor Parker? I mean, something is seriously, seriously wrong with her. But we're going to go ahead and get into it because this is it was hard to just sort of condense this whole case in one episode. I mean, this could easily be a multi-part series if you wanted to get into all the different layers of Taylor Parker's life, because she's an individual who, it seems like straight out of the gate, just decided that she was going to start weaving this web of lies around herself, her life, and she just continued that year over year over year as the web just got bigger and bigger and bigger. And it got to a point where I think she realized things were crashing down, and she took things to the absolute extreme in order to try to keep her relationship. It really seems like at the end of the day,
that was her only goal. I mean, in life in general too, was just to maintain a relationship.
Yes, she's a very sad individual who I think is clearly ill with something.
Yes.
But I think there's something more disturbing going on with her beneath the surface. But man, this one was a tough one to watch. It was a tough one to research because it is just on a whole other level of brutality. So forewarning, this episode is graphic. Definitely don't listen to this or watch this with children around. This is truly, truly disturbing. But in late 2020, pathological liar and murderer from Texas brutally attacked her friend and committed the unthinkable, heinous crime. Leading up to the murder, the killer constructed a labyrinth of lies that most people, including her boyfriend, never fully grasped at just how deep this rabbit hole of lies went. The most significant and disturbing pertained to a fake pregnancy that Taylor Parker essentially performed over a course of 9 months. And when her delusions were on the verge of being exposed, this killer resorted to taking the life of 2 innocent individuals to keep her sick fantasy alive. The subsequent trial of this killer, Taylor Parker, captured national attention, which I see why, and has inspired the new Netflix documentary Maternal Instinct. And during the proceedings, the full extent of her deception proved to be even more complex than anyone could have ever anticipated. I mean, this is just on a whole other level that, we've seen people like this before. There's lots of, catfish types. There's people that live double, triple lives, create fake aliases, but she took this to a whole other level that I have not seen before.
Absolutely. I mean, when we say uncovered her web of lies, I wouldn't be surprised if there's more, even after all the court proceedings and everything. I wouldn't be surprised if there's more stuff out there that just no one knows.
There are.
Yeah.
I mean, it seems like the more you turn turn over, the more you find. I mean, it just seems like I don't even have words, honestly.
Yeah.
But I mean, if you haven't seen this documentary or you don't know anything about Taylor Parker or what she did, she is convicted of killing Reagan Hancock, who was pregnant, 35, 36 weeks pregnant at the time, and cut her unborn baby out of her to keep as her own.
Yeah.
And this is, known as a fetal abduction. But so let's talk about this a little bit, because in order to, really understand what she did and just this whole type of crime in general, let's talk about it a little bit. So the proper term for this specific tragedy is fetal abduction by maternal evisceration. And this is not all that common in the United States. It's practically an unheard of form of torturous kidnapping. Not every fetal abduction case involves evisceration, which is essentially disembowelment, but they're usually violent and beyond appalling, as we'll see in this case. And in almost 50 years since 1974, there have only been 24 fetal abductions in the United States. And this is according to the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. In these cases, just a little over half the unborn victims survived, and the vast majority of the pregnant victims tragically lost their lives. And in many cases, much like the one we're about to unravel, the offender spent months pretending to be pregnant and crafting a false but detailed narrative about her own pregnancy before targeting the expectant mother. And this specific case really underscores the extreme violent measures offenders will take to try to maintain this false identity. And Taylor falls into this category of fetal abductors, a rare class of women who are blinded by their internal desires, and their murders are very much planned, they're premeditated, and they usually have ideas for what to do next. And that's what's crazy, is thinking, how did she think this was actually going to work out? It's hard to wrap your head around it. They also rarely show signs of serious mental illness or intoxication when they kill their victims, which makes these abductions that much more chilling. So how does someone get here? I think that's like the big question that we all have, is how do you just get to this point that you go and do this to somebody? How does a young, popular woman like Taylor turn into one of the worst kinds of monsters you can possibly imagine? What her family, friends, boyfriend, and victim didn't know was that Taylor was a fraudster of the highest order, truly, starting at a young age and building up a web of lies for unsuspecting people to walk right into.
So let's talk a little bit about Taylor's background. So Taylor Rene Parker was born on December 8th, 1992 in Titus County, Texas. Her parents divorced sometime during her childhood, and it's presumed she spent most of her early years with her mother, Shona. According to her mom, Taylor struggled with immense anxiety starting in the 3rd grade and would refuse to go to school because of painful stomach issues. Things got worse in her preteen years when she and her brother witnessed their parents' ugly split. After her parents divorced, Taylor began spending a lot of time with her grandma, who was apparently obese and suffered health issues. That's when Taylor started getting larger and hit 250 pounds by the time high school rolled around. She was really insecure about her weight, and while in high school, she would supposedly ask skinnier girls to use their nudes to pass off as her own when talking to guys online. So she was starting this catfishing much earlier than anyone kind of suspected.
I mean, I've never heard of that before.
No.
That's wild that she was doing that.
And in the interview with her, former classmate, she was like, yeah, we'd be like, what the fuck are you talking about?
Yeah.
Like, that's insane.
She'd be like, take a picture of yourself from the neck down.
Right.
So I can send it to somebody.
And the classmate was like, you think when you meet this guy in person, like, he's not going to be able to tell?
Yeah, well, it's like maybe she's one of those catfishes that just had no intentions to ever meet them.
Right.
And it was just more so, getting some sort of gratification from the communications with them.
Absolutely. Although she was somewhat troubled, she grew up as a country girl, hunting, spending lots of time outdoors, and caring for the farm animals. Although she struggled with mental health problems, people still thought she was funny and ultimately a good person. One of Taylor's faults, though, was her need to constantly be the center of attention, especially when that attention was coming from a man. At 17, she had her first child, a girl, but she didn't stay with the father for very long. Taylor's family supposedly didn't really know him very well, and he wasn't involved in the baby's life. She dropped out of school when she was forced to become a single teen mom. Shortly after having her daughter, Taylor began committing welfare and benefits fraud. Now, these are felony offenses, and she supposedly engaged in it for about 10 years. By the time she was 21, she had married twice before having her second child, which was a boy with her husband, Tommy. During that pregnancy, she got preeclampsia, which can be a life-threatening condition characterized by dangerously high blood pressure. Because of the close call, she chose to get a tubal ligation, which is also known as having your tubes tied. And I mean, this is an important point at this.
Yeah, especially since we're, talking about somebody who's, ends up faking a pregnancy,
Right.
Very, very early on, after having 2 children of her own, she's, basically being sterilized due to medical reasons. So keep that in mind for later on.
Absolutely. She continued having problems with her reproductive system, including an ectopic pregnancy in one of her fallopian tubes that was found during an exploratory surgery. She had visited her doctor to get checked out for an unexplained bleeding, and during the surgery, the doctors also found scarring and ovarian cysts caused by endometriosis. As she was under anesthesia, doctors asked her then husband Tommy and her mother if they could perform a full hysterectomy, which they consented to. According to Taylor, she had no clue they were going to perform the hysterectomy while she was under anesthesia, and she was devastated about the irreversible surgery. Still, even after her sterilization, she continued lying about her marital status for the state welfare benefits. Taylor once asked to take her mom's uterus so that she could have more children, which her mother refused. Sometime during her marriage to Tommy, Taylor had gastric bypass surgery in Tijuana, Mexico, which is an operation to assist with weight loss. It was recommended to her by her doctor because of her heavy weight that was causing many health complications. After the surgery, she apparently became extremely self-absorbed and seemed to lose interest in her family.
Yeah, it seems like, I believe she got a gastric sleeve, and the surgery is very effective.
Absolutely.
And so I think she started losing weight and, started sort of getting the body that she had always wanted. And this just drove her to want more and more attention.
Absolutely.
She was like, oh, I finally am slimming down, and I finally have the appearance that I've been wanting this entire time.
Right. That I've been asking people for nudes of, really.
Exactly.
She and Tommy eventually went through a heated divorce in 2017, and he obtained full custody of their son. He's claimed that Taylor hasn't paid a dime in child support since then.
Which I think this is a key detail as well, is like, because I was wondering the same thing. I'm like, well, she's already a mom, so where are her kids?
Where are her kids?
She does not have custody of her kids.
Right.
And I think that speaks volumes to, her past and all, probably the crazy shit she's pulled before. And, both of her, partners were able to get full custody of their children. So she really didn't see her kids.
No, and to me, I mean, this is a bit of editorializing, but I almost feel like it wasn't necessarily about caring for the kids. It was about the pregnancy. She really only seemed to care about the pregnancy and having the baby. But once it was out in the world and was a person, she seemed to have lost complete interest.
Yeah, it seems like she really thrived from the attention she received from being pregnant and that whole process.
Right.
But when it comes to just, that's parenthood really just starts when you have the baby. So to then just sort of bail out and not be involved and not support your child after they're born. Yeah. I mean, tells you everything you need to know about
Absolutely.
her, really.
Yeah. After their split, Taylor slowly began constructing a fake life for herself. She married another man, Hunter, shortly after divorcing Tommy, and in 2018, she conceived her first fake pregnancy story. Her husband had no clue that Taylor didn't have a uterus anymore. And I think that's an important point, especially for people who have just watched the documentary. She had done this before. She had, and perhaps, certainly not as complex as her later lie, but she had done this before.
Yeah, she's gaining experience in this and confidence in doing this. And the fact she's also just withholding information from a spouse about having a hysterectomy and then going forward and doing a fake pregnancy is just, and it gets more and more elaborate as time goes on, but that's not an easy feat to pull off.
No.
And to fool your spouse into that, it's like, how do you even do that?
Right. When she announced the pregnancy, she apparently told her friend that it was a miracle and that all her stuff grew back.
Which is impossible.
Yeah, that's tough. That's a tough thing to say.
Yeah.
Ultimately, her faux pregnancies would lead to repeated dramatic miscarriage stories once Taylor realized she couldn't keep up with the lie anymore. She then began asking close friends if they would be her surrogate. She assured them that her grandmother was a millionaire and that she was going to inherit millions of dollars after she passed away. If they agreed to the surrogacy, she said, they would be paid handsomely with her inheritance. None of her friends, however, were comfortable with the thought of having her baby. She also had a history of faking numerous kinds of illnesses and disabilities, including one time when she pretended to have a stroke. Witnesses to this reported it was incredibly believable, and she was somehow able to keep half her face basically paralyzed, which is something that happens to many stroke victims. Taylor's ailments also include multiple sclerosis, cancer, and a brain tumor. Just everything.
Yeah, I mean, I think this also just shows her level of commitment to these bits that she's doing with her medical issues. I mean, to force your face to look droopy, and actually knew a family friend that had a stroke and saw it firsthand. Like half of his face was like drooping afterwards, and for her to be able to somehow fake this to a point that it's convincing enough to people that they believe it is crazy. I mean, it's just, that's the only way to put it. She is crazy for doing this.
Yeah.
And then it goes on and on and on. Then it's cancer, then it's a brain tumor, and it's like, clearly, I think we all can see that this is just a way of getting attention for her. She knows that this, makes people feel bad for her and forces people to interact with her.
Right.
So she just kept doing it.
Well, and it's not just like, oh, I fainted, give me attention. She's now faking these things, pregnancies, chronic illnesses, where it means, long-standing attention. It means this is never going away, so you always have to treat me this way. You always have to give me this attention.
Exactly.
For unknown reasons, she and her second husband, Hunter, eventually broke things off about a year into their marriage. One of the most shocking things about Taylor, though, was her ability to make people believe anything she told them. As an expert liar, she could convince herself and others of dozens of made-up stories. Unknown to Taylor's friends and family, she had secretly created multiple aliases to take part in and expand on her own fantasy world. She obtained several phones to text herself and others, which she would use to pretend to be some obscure relative or friend in order to back up her stories. Taylor used several fake emails and social media accounts to reinforce her delusions.
Yeah, I mean, this is just insanity.
Right.
I mean, everybody's like, how do you have the time? And how do you keep all of this straight?
Keep it in check, right.
So she is spending countless hours and time creating all these accounts, running all of them, managing them, and keeping everybody's story straight so that they seem believable. I mean, I've watched seasons of the Catfish show on MTV when that was around, and I don't think I ever saw anybody go to this lengths, and then to do it to their own family and friends is like a whole other level of diabolical. I mean, it's crazy.
It's insane. And to try to prove her false medical history, she would pretend to be doctors or nurses, either calling or emailing her to discuss health-related problems. Having worked at a doctor's office, she was intimately familiar with the system and knew how to work it.
Yeah, and another thing she did too is she would use a voice-changing app.
Yes, a modulator.
A modulator to modulate her voice to become these people.
Right.
And would place phone calls and leave voicemails as these people to make them seem that much more legit.
Right. Well, insane. And I also think like her experience working in healthcare allowed her to be aware of the language surrounding it. That's something we often notice when people are impersonating a doctor. They slip up, they sound stupid. But she knows how they speak. She knows how to sound official in some sort of way.
Yeah, and she's seen the email. She knows how to craft the signatures on the emails.
Right.
She knows the titles. She knows enough to make it all look legit to somebody who, is just glancing at it or isn't really like thinking that hard about who's reaching out to them. And I mean, if you got a voicemail from somebody and it sounds like a man, this Southern man, that's this doctor calling you. I mean, most people aren't going to think, oh, that's a woman modulating her voice.
Right.
Like you're going to just kind of assume that, oh, yeah, it's just the
This is
doctor.
a guy doctor calling me. Everyone thought that Taylor was just an innocent Southern belle who just had the worst luck in life. Nobody suspected that she would become one of the most hated women on death row. Taylor's spiral into truly demented behavior began when she met a young, promising woman who was named Reagan Simmons-Hancock.
You've heard me and Ian talk about these guys many a times already, but we absolutely are huge fans of ZocDoc.
I mean, it's really the quickest and easiest way to find a doctor.
A doctor you actually love, too.
That's the main thing.
Not just any doctor.
I've done some random polls on doctors before, and that is always a horrible, painful sometimes choice.
Yeah, nothing's worse than showing up to the doctor's office and you're seeing him for the first time, and it's just something's off.
Something's wrong. One time I went to a doctor for the first time, and he was like, "Yep, well, in order to do the surgery, we're going to cut you open." And I was like, no,
No
please.
bedside manner at all. Or my experience is usually like factory line, like in and out.
Right.
I'm like, and he's like, moving on.
Yeah, he's gone.
Just like in and out, and you're just not getting the care that you want. And ZocDoc, they've been a supporter of the show for years now, and absolutely love ZocDoc. I've used them a million times at this point for anything medical related. Whether it be finding an oral surgeon for wisdom teeth extraction, found my oral surgeon on ZocDoc. Whether it's a dermatologist, whether it's, they even have mental health professionals on there. And most recently, I use ZocDoc to book an urgent care appointment at like 3 a.m.
Just like, I need this shit now.
I was like, I need to see a doctor as soon as possible, as soon as things open in the morning. I was just like in agony in bed. And for some reason, going on ZocDoc, finding an urgent care place near my house and booking that appointment gave me some like peace of mind.
The pain went away.
Like 9 a.m. I get to see a doctor.
Right.
And it allowed me to skip the line, and I got right in and got the meds that I needed. And it was a seamless process. And ZocDoc just makes it extremely easy. And what's great is that you don't have to guess whether the doctor takes your insurance, because with ZocDoc, you can filter all of everything on there by insurance. So you can make sure that you're finding somebody in network, so you're not slammed with a huge bill because you accidentally went and saw somebody that was out of network. And it's so easy to find somebody in your area with available appointments. If you have an urgency that you need to see somebody ASAP, like a lot of times you can book a same day appointment, which is great. And everything is done through ZocDoc, the app, the website, whichever way you want to do it. And most of the time it's all over email.
Right.
They'll send you new patient forms if you're a new patient. And it's just a seamless, quick, easy process.
Well, and it's also, I think a lot of people have experiences with other medical websites in which it's confusing. It looks like it was made in the 90s.
I think they do it on purpose too.
Yeah. They don't actually want you to book this.
No, they don't. They don't want you to go and find your own doctor that you love. So ZocDoc lets you search and compare local in-network doctors. They have over 150,000 providers with 200 plus specialties in all 50 states. It's free to use, which...
who doesn't love that?
It's a no-brainer. You got to be using ZocDoc when it comes to booking appointments for anything related to your physical, mental health. You'll find an amazing real patient-reviewed doctor on ZocDoc, which I think makes the service that much better. Is you're actually getting to see other ZocDoc users and their reviews on the doctors you're going to see.
And you can see a picture of the doctor.
And a picture of the doctor,
and
right? It's important.
I've been like, you've got kind eyes.
That helps a lot when they've got kind eyes.
Yeah.
You don't want to go see somebody who's staring through your soul and you're like, yeah,
I'm good.
Hates their job. So we love ZocDoc, and if you're not using it now, what are you doing? Because your health matters, and taking care of yourself shouldn't be complicated. Find and book the right doctor today with ZocDoc.
Head to ZocDoc.com/lightsout to get started and check that appointment off of your to-do list. That's ZocDoc.com/lightsout.
So let's take a few minutes now to talk about the victim in this case, because that's what really matters here at the end of the day. But Reagan, she was born on November 14th, 1998 in Hope, Arkansas. She was described as an incredibly sweet but sassy child who grew into an amazing young woman. She loved shoes and fashion and was the second oldest of 4 siblings. Her family loves to remember her quirkiness and spitfire personality. And Reagan, she had her first daughter at 17, just like Taylor. She was a wonderful mother to that little girl. According to Reagan's mom, Jessica, she juggled everything by herself and still treated her daughter with the utmost care. And Jessica has attested that her daughter was the best mama she had ever known. I mean, just, being a teen mom is already difficult in itself, but to rise to the occasion and just become, the best mom you can possibly be and best person, that was who Reagan was. In 2019, Reagan was looking for a cost-effective professional to take her engagement and wedding photos. And that's when she met Taylor, who was trying to be a freelance photographer at the time. And Reagan would probably never have believed that this freelancer would be the one to take her life one day. During the wedding, Taylor attached herself to everyone, like she desperately wanted to be a part of the family. She was taking selfies with the bride and her wedding party, inserting herself into everything she possibly could. Reagan actually invited Taylor to join them for a party after the reception, and some claimed it was like Taylor was one of the bridesmaids. So she's not there just being a professional and taking wedding photos. No, she has to be a part of the wedding, essentially, and the festivities. People at the wedding were pretty impressed with her photography skills and thought she was, just this polite young lady. And after meeting each other, the two women developed a friendship. And Reagan always supported Taylor through her fabricated traumas, having no idea that she was dealing with a truly vicious psychopath. Around the time she met Reagan, Taylor fell for the man she would eventually go to the ultimate extreme for, which leads us to Mr. Wade Griffin. Mr. Wade, man, this guy is country through and through.
He's country through and through, and I honestly feel really horrible for him.
Yeah, I mean, it's like he seemingly has no idea who he's entered into a relationship with. But Wade, he's your average cowboy. He's a local hog trapper. He was kind of this, really homegrown, corn-fed man, yeah, who shared a lot in common with Taylor at the time. I mean, they're both country. They both love all the same things. And they seemed to really hit it off the night they met at a rodeo. Because, again, they're both all about the country life, whether it's, working outdoors, working with animals, hunting, and just really being on the ranch or farm. In October of 2019, Taylor moved in with Wade, although he was slightly apprehensive. And things just started moving really, really fast, a little too fast for Wade. But he gave in when Taylor convinced him that she needed protection from her evil mother. And every night, a good old dinner was prepared for Wade when he got home from work. And Taylor would take care of all those, traditional, wifely chores of, clean the house, cook the food, have it all waiting for me, wait on Wade hand and foot. And I think she really did this, not necessarily because Wade was like, asking her to, but really she just wanted to be wanted by Wade and, appease him in every way, shape, and form. And so, she wanted to seem like the perfect housewife to him. But pretty quick, it became somewhat obvious to his family and friends that Wade wasn't really as into Taylor as Taylor was into him. Everyone saw that Taylor was just obsessed with Wade and always all over him. She clung onto him physically. Like she was that clingy type, just like a koala with its mom, just like holding onto him constantly to the point where it's like weird. It's one thing, you want
a little PDA.
Yeah, a little PDA. But she's like clinging onto him. And anytime they're around people, she's like attached to his hip. And so people started noticing Wade was kind of withdrawing a little bit more and more. And Taylor absolutely hated this. She dreaded this distance that was growing between the two of them. And this, I think, really caused her to become more desperate. And so she told Wade one day about the millions of dollars in inheritance that she was supposedly going to be getting, from her grandmother, her grandparents. And she started doing, what she felt like she had to do. And that was buy Wade all sorts of nice things. So they just went on a money spree. They bought new clothes. They bought new household items, a brand new truck for Wade. And I saw a picture of it. I think it was like a F-350 or 450. I mean, a big old diesel truck. And I mean, these things run over $100,000. So blowing big money, big fancy truck. And then they started looking into buying a nice property in Texas that was worth over $4 million. We're talking big money here.
We're talking big money. And I also think it's important to note that like Wade is from a pretty humble background.
Yeah, Wade's definitely just happy being outside doing country stuff. He doesn't he's not used to all this. He definitely didn't grow up with much, and so this was, kind of out of nowhere. And of course, who's not going to enjoy, getting a new truck and looking at buying his dream ranch and all these things. But little does he know what's really going on here.
Right.
At Wade's family Christmas gathering, Taylor put on this whole show. She had this whole like presentation about, their vision for the future and this new property that they were looking at. And from everybody who was there, they really said that she was just glowing that night. She was ecstatic about, this amazing news, this new life, this new property. And it really just seemed like to everybody else that Taylor was going above and beyond to impress Wade. I mean, ultimately, she wants to impress him, impress in front of his family. However, many thought that the relationship was moving extremely fast. I mean, they're just boyfriend and girlfriend.
Right.
Like there's not been a whole lot of talk about future plans, at least from Wade's point of view.
Well, and we're only a couple months into the relationship.
That's like very bizarre that she would start spending all this money on him, and then they'd talk about getting this big, expensive property together. And again, she had just been divorced earlier that year. So, I mean, red flags up all over the place from the family. And things became really questionable when one of Taylor's lies didn't work out. Because she had actually bought Wade's mom, Connie, a new car. And, she did this as like to win favor with her, clearly. But not long after, Connie's car got repossessed by the dealership because there hadn't been any payments made on it. Uh-oh.
Yeah, what's that about? You said you bought this outright with your inheritance money.
Right. And so all of a sudden the car disappears and Connie's like, okay, well, I guess it was a free car. But obviously she started second guessing Taylor and, what was really going on. And then during this multi-million-dollar ranch property deal, the real estate agents, of course, when you go and pay cash, $4 million cash, and really if you pay cash on any real estate property, or do any real estate transaction, there's a verification of funds that happens, right? And so, they're like, I think all of the people involved in this real estate transaction all were like, something's a little sus here. This is a little weird, that this couple's just paying $4 million cash for this ranch, but she's saying she has this inheritance money. And so, they of course got to start the process to make sure that those funds will actually transfer, especially in a cash deal. Taylor, though, was very, very strongly opposed to, all the agents and other people involved in this transaction looking at her bank account. Because, you got to be able to prove funds, before making that wire payment. You got to send statements in and things like that. And, she was not about that whatsoever. One day, she happily showed Wade a message from her Uncle Butch saying that he was going to wire out $300,000 to Taylor for the escrow money. And of course, Uncle Butch doesn't exist at all. He's just one of many fabricated characters that Taylor created. And of course, Taylor never received those funds. She also posed as an attorney for herself and emailed the real estate office to order them to stop trying to verify her income, saying her bank information was quote unquote private.
I also think it's important to note that this lawyer's last name, quote unquote, was Lawington.
Yeah. Very creative.
Very creative.
And of course, everybody involved in this real estate transaction is like, okay, this is very, very weird. They know something's up here. And if you can't follow the process that everybody has to follow, then no dice. This is not going to happen. And at this point, when this fell through, this was a huge, huge deal for Taylor and Wade. She definitely starts spiraling from here because all of her lies are starting to crumble around her. And really her biggest fear is starting to come true. Wade is also getting very suspicious and, he's listening to his family and they're like, yeah, if you're not feeling her, man, like
just go.
She seems like she's off her rocker. Like maybe you should split.
Right.
And so he's already starting to have, second thoughts about his relationship with her. But Taylor, she's not going to go down without a fight. So she dug in deeper. becoming excessively clingy and emotional. She would supposedly harass him over text for hours and call him nonstop at work and accuse him of cheating on her. And again, kind of circling back to Reagan, Taylor and Reagan were fairly good friends at this point, and she was just blown away when Reagan announced that she was pregnant with her second daughter around January 2020. And it seemed at this point in time, a light bulb went off in Taylor's head, and she then excitedly announced her own pregnancy with Wade. So interesting timing here,
Right.
especially when we see how this plays out later down the road. But now Wade, of course, Taylor's coming to be like, I think I may be pregnant.
Right. I think
Is how she drops it to him.
It was even like she went to, I can't remember the name, but she said like, I feel like I have a pregnant aura.
Yes.
Like that's how it started.
Yes. It's like, okay. And of course, Wade's like, well, let's get a pregnancy test.
Let's
right?
check this shit out.
But now Wade's kind of stuck in this, between a rock and a hard place, because now he's believing that Taylor is pregnant. Of course, he doesn't know anything about her actual medical history.
Right.
So he has no choice but to sort of believe that I'm going to be a dad. Taylor's pregnant. So, I want to step up. I want to be a man and be
Right.
there for her throughout this process. And of course, my child. And so that window to sort of leave unscathed kind of came to an end at this point. And Taylor, of course, is super excited. She's like going all out. She's building a nursery in Wade's house. She claimed, as Ian said, her aura's changed. And, she knew deep down inside that she was pregnant and really believed it, I think. And this was right about when COVID-19, that struck. And Taylor was able to go to medical appointments without Wade there, of course, because of social distancing protocols. So he had really no idea what was actually transpiring during those visits, and simply just had to believe whatever Taylor told him. Soon after announcing her pregnancy, she purchased forged medical records, including a fake positive pregnancy test, which I think there's probably services online that will just like do this for you.
They'll generate it. And a lot of times I feel like it's these, you can buy these fake medical records. It's mainly for like, movie props, TV props. Like it's not.
Yeah. It's not to be used in real life.
Right.
Yeah, it's clearly a prop of some sort.
I was going to say I've bought like these kind of props before for film sets that involve like a pregnancy story.
Right.
They're like $2.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So she's tapping these places to start building, this complex lie of her, pregnancy with Wade. And Wade was comforted, I think, a bit by the fact that Taylor had had 2 prior children, although she didn't have custody of them. So I think he was kind of like, well, I don't know what I'm doing. He's kind of one of those guys like, I'm just a man. I don't know anything.
I don't know. I know my hogs.
Yeah. That's all I know. I do is wrangle hogs. And so he was really relying on Taylor to sort of guide him through that whole process and, sort of help introduce him to fatherhood. So, Taylor's happy to do that. Let's just put it that way. And obviously throughout this whole time, Wade has zero idea about her medical history and the fact that it is physically impossible for her to be pregnant.
Yeah.
But Taylor announced that their baby was due in September 2020. And of course, Taylor wanted to throw a gender reveal party. So a friend helped orchestrate, this grand event and was supposed to contact Taylor's doctor to confirm the gender because, of course, you got to get the report. So when the friend received an email from the doctor revealing the gender, she noticed one big problem with this report. The document was dated in 2016.
This would be a very old baby.
Yes, it would make no sense. And when she brought this up to Taylor, of course, Taylor quickly called her doctor and then provided an excuse right away, claiming that the lab at the hospital had over 100 misprints that day, which get the fuck out of here with that.
That's crazy.
That does not happen.
That hospital would be closed down by the state if they had 100 misprints.
It makes no sense whatsoever. So she told her friend, oh, don't worry about it. This was just a fluke, whatever. And said her doctor confirmed the results were in fact accurate. And of course, the friend had no clue that this gender confirmation actually belonged to Taylor's first child, and she wasn't actually pregnant. So she just took her old results and tried to pass them off. I don't know if she doctored them at all, but tried to pass them off as this new baby's. Taylor was adamant that her mom couldn't attend the gender reveal party. Wonder why.
Yeah.
Though she allowed her father to. It was later revealed that he supposedly also knew about the hysterectomy and didn't say anything for some reason, which, what the fuck are we doing here?
You know, I think that this is an important point to mention, that men should know a little bit about women's biology, I think.
If you're going to have a baby, do some research.
Because I honestly think that is at fault in this situation, is that, like,
the men are clueless.
the men are rather clueless. Like, her dad was like, oh yeah, she had a hysterectomy, but to him that's just medical jargon and it doesn't actually connect.
He doesn't know the ins and outs of it, or
Right.
maybe she reversed it or something.
Right.
No,
It's-
you do a basic Google search and it's
Yes.
very clear that
One
this is
Google search.
permanent sterile. I mean, they take the uterus out.
Right.
So with no uterus, no baby. So again, she's got the fake ultrasound. She's, of course, utilizing all of these props she's created and making posts on social media, because of course she's on social media where she's getting all this love and attention online. And when Taylor's former friends saw this, they were reasonably alarmed. The doctor she previously worked with at the medical clinic also knew. Her OBGYN saw this online, because, I mean, this is a small community she's living in. Kind of everybody knows everybody. Everybody's kind of tied into each other's lives on social media. And they even knew that it was physically impossible for Taylor to get pregnant. But as medical professionals, of course, they can't go divulge the truth, because that is a violation of HIPAA laws.
Right.
And so they just had to sit back and watch Taylor, live out this fantasy. And the friend in charge of the gender reveal spoke with Taylor's doctors to try to verify her suspicions that the document was from years ago, but the medical providers couldn't confirm or deny anything, of course. But one of them did tell her friend to just go with her gut.
Which, that, I have to say, HIPAA laws, I agree with broadly, because I don't want my doctor revealing my information. This is such an extreme case where I do commend that one doctor for, like, figuring out a way to nudge it in the right direction, because she knew something was wrong.
Yeah, they were like, something's, just go with your gut. And friend was like, okay. Because I don't believe they can say anything unless they suspect that someone is in harm's way, right? Which at this point, there's no indication that that's where this is headed. So nothing was said, and Taylor's lies continue. Another provider said that they don't even send those kinds of documents anymore. And, it's like the exact document that she sent, I think, was like very, very like a basic pregnancy test. And, when you go through the process nowadays, you go and get like an official report from the lab, and a doctor usually circles whether it's a boy or a girl on it, and it's in a nice envelope and stuff. So she didn't have that at all. It was just like a basic pregnancy test or a gender reveal test from before, and it sounds like that's even sent electronically, possibly at this clinic or something. So that's why they're like, yeah, we don't even do it this way
This isn't
anymore.
real.
This is old.
Yeah.
But when her ex-husband, Hunter, learned that she was claiming to be pregnant, he tried to reach out to Wade's family, who didn't believe him. Everyone was simply just wrapped up in Taylor's pregnancy. She seems happy, she's glowing, and pretty much believed that Taylor can do no wrong.
Well, and I also think, they don't want to think that someone, like,
who would want to think that?
Right. And this person is going to be part of your family now. So it's like, we want to think the best of her.
Yeah. I mean, if you don't know the inner workings of what Taylor's actually doing, I mean, you really don't have anything to go off of.
Right.
It's like, yeah, everything seems legit. And in the meantime, Taylor began nesting. She's buying baby clothes, baby gear. I mean, spending tons of money. I mean, just decking out Wade's house with all of the gear for this, new baby that's supposedly supposed to be coming home in the near future. And she even started posting pictures of her baby bump on social media. And everybody really knew just how obsessed she was with her supposed pregnancy. But she was also inwardly obsessed with other people's pregnancies. Her former best friend said back in the day that when she became pregnant, Taylor suddenly became very possessive over her. She needed to be involved in everything, even asking for access to the app so that she could closely monitor her friend's progress. So like there's a lot of pregnancy apps, you track your pregnancy through. And so she was like, give me access so I can follow along, which is very weird.
It's bizarre.
This is personal information.
Right.
I mean, friend or not, best friend or not. I mean, it's a very weird thing to want to do. And that friend then began to distance herself and later reported that she was actually frightened by Taylor. She knew other people who reported that whenever something tragic happened in their lives, Taylor would steal their stories and then use it for herself or try to, falsely try to relate to them. And really just put it back on herself. It's like, however, any way that I can possibly take your tragedy, your trauma, and like turn it back to myself and get attention for it. That's what Taylor did over and over and over again. Something that I think all of us sort of walk away from this is like, why did these friends and relatives never like get more public with this or tell somebody who can maybe do something about this? And I think it's hard to say what you would do in this situation unless you were in it. And it's hard to also know how many of these people actually believed all these stories and stuff. And I think she's pretty convincing.
And again, like I was saying, I think you don't want to believe someone is lying at this level ever.
No.
You don't. There's something in us where we want to believe people. We want to help people.
Especially a close friend and family member. It's like the last thing you want to do is believe that they're lying to you about something so serious. And anytime someone would critique Taylor, she would just tell Wade and his family that her mother had purposely turned everyone against her. So she's villainized her mother as sort of the scapegoat for, any sort of criticism or, people who are attempting maybe to expose her lies. She just goes, oh, no, it's my mom.
It's my mom. She's crazy.
My mom's convincing people that I'm lying. And so, people just kind of fed into that. But Taylor began to realize, though, that a lie can't last forever. And she became incredibly nervous as she noticed people were finally starting to catch on.
Relatives and ex-friends of Taylor's were anxiously waiting for the news that she had ultimately miscarried. That's how it always seemed to go anyway. Every time Connie tried to talk to Wade about her concerns, he would always have an excuse for his girlfriend. Taylor convinced Wade she didn't think his mom wanted them to be happy and that she was trying to sabotage them. Suddenly, Wade, his family, and Taylor began receiving ominous, threatening texts and emails. They were extremely cruel, telling Wade to kill himself and calling him ugly names. Of course, Taylor was writing all of them. She also sent messages pretending to be her mom, saying she didn't want the baby to inherit any of the money. Over time, people began noticing that her belly was pretty small for how long she'd been pregnant. So she bought a silicone moon belly, a standard pregnancy prosthetic for TV and cosplay. And after she bought this fake stomach, she refused to let Wade touch her or have sex with her. I think that's a big thing for a lot of these lies throughout is like, if you're lying to your spouse who you're supposedly intimate with about your biology, they're going to learn. So the only rational thing to do is just, nope, no more. Don't touch me.
Yeah, I know. When I was telling Kendall about this case, that was like one of her questions. She's like, well, how'd they have sex? I was like, no, they didn't.
They just didn't.
She just shut him down.
Right.
And because she obviously knew that she's not going to be able to hide that if she's, getting intimate with Wade. And obviously, this is counterproductive to her whole goal here, which is to keep Wade around.
Right.
And that's going to further drive that divide between the two of them.
Absolutely.
But this lie is more important at this point.
Right. So for months, she would hide in the bathroom for hours while Wade waited outside, wondering why she was acting so weird. Her erratic behavior and refusal to let him touch her put a great strain on their relationship and Wade's mental well-being.
Which I can only imagine just how difficult and confusing this must have been for Wade. And I mean, one of the things that, your OB or, your doula, whoever is supporting you through pregnancy will tell you is that sex is amazing for pregnancy and also, getting your body ready. And, there's, benefits to sex in multiple ways. And so to not have this at all for months and months and months must have been just crazy. He must have just been so confused.
But again, I think Everyone in this story is, they come from a very traditional background.
Yes.
And I think Wade is, doing what he thinks he needs to do to not only be a man, but a good father and potentially a good husband, even though he, self-admittedly doesn't really like this woman. He is now like, I will do anything to make her happy and make the baby happy.
Yeah.
And if she's saying, don't have sex with me, okay. She would encourage people to feel her fake stomach over her shirt, of course, and Taylor was so convincing in everything she said that she could apparently make people feel the baby kicking in her stomach when they touched her. She posted a video of it on social media, which looked fairly realistic.
Yeah, I wish I could find this and show you, but it does look. I mean, she must have found a prosthetic pregnancy belly that has some sort of
kicking function
mechanism that kicks.
Or she just in the bathroom for hours was practicing flexing her stomach. Yeah.
Oh my God.
Then she and Wade had maternity pictures taken, and it was a Western-themed outdoorsy photo shoot. Taylor happily showed off her baby bump, caressing the silicone as if her unborn child was truly in there.
Yeah, and I think people did sort of think it was weird because when you look at these photos, right, obviously, the bump looks somewhat legit, I guess. Yeah. But the thing that also doesn't match up is it's a known fact that women gain weight during pregnancy in all places, and especially the breasts. That's something that happens, and that's not happening with Taylor.
No.
It's just the bump's getting bigger, but everything else is sort of staying the same. And and it sounds like she tried to sort of put on weight in order to make it make sense and sell it. Yeah. But it's also kind of odd, especially to any mom out there, that something's not adding up here.
Right. Around the time Taylor shared her maternity photos online, a friend of hers and Wade's reached out to Shona, who's Taylor's mom. Shona seemed completely unfazed that Taylor began this lie, and then told a friend there was no inheritance money whatsoever. Taylor's family, according to her, wasn't even close to being rich. One of the supposed reasons Shona never said anything about the situation is because she was trying to protect her living granddaughter, who she had essentially raised for most of her life.
Which I get, but if you know that your daughter is leading a whole family along this intricate lie, I just feel like you have some responsibility.
It's your obligation.
Come on.
And I have some empathy for Shona. This is effectively her granddaughter is her daughter, and especially with how much Taylor is basically not her daughter. Her daughter's saying these horrible things about her. It's this is the one part of her family she can still hold on to, the one piece of herself.
Yeah.
It's tough. When Wade's friend tried to tell him all this, he adamantly denied it and said Taylor's mom was just being crazy, like she always was. Eventually, his friends gave up trying to save him because of how angry and defensive he would get about her. Taylor's due date was supposed to be on September 22nd, 2020, and as it approached, her former doctors, ex-friends, and relatives became incredibly nervous. One doctor close to Taylor called the local hospital and told them to go on high alert because he was afraid that she might steal a newborn to pull off the lie.
Which, good on this doctor for doing that. I mean, if I was following along with this, I'd be like, yeah, that seems like the most logical next step for her, since she's not bailing out of this at this point.
Right. So eventually, Taylor's due date, unsurprisingly, passed by, but her excuses just kept on flowing. Almost 2 weeks after her due date, on October 5th, she and Wade were supposed to go to the hospital to get induced. The morning of the appointment, however, a fire broke out under their house, and Wade had to put it out with a hose. After the fire was resolved, the couple continued getting ready for the morning. Right before they were about to leave for the appointment, Taylor burst into the room and said the hospital was on lockdown due to a bomb threat.
I mean, come on.
Jesus fucking Christ.
What the hell is going on here? A fire randomly breaks out. Wade's like, holy shit, which we'll talk about that more in a bit. But then, they're supposed to go in for induction, and the hospital is under lockdown because of a bomb threat.
Called in by a guy.
What
Let's
are
be
the
clear.
chances?
Yeah, whoa. Again, bad luck, Taylor.
God.
Wade didn't believe her at first because why would you? But she showed him the news on social media. The hospital was truly in a state of emergency thanks to Taylor. She had called in the bomb threat using an anonymous phone number shortly before it was posted.
That is
insane.
Psycho.
Yeah.
Psychopathic.
Because not only are you now you're selling your life further, you're putting a hospital with potentially people, certainly in critical condition.
Holy shit.
That's fucked up.
That's scary. What the hell?
Dude, it's fucked up. Wade grew increasingly frustrated as the days passed without meeting his baby. He supposedly admitted to his mom during this turbulent time that he didn't love Taylor, but was just trying to be a good dad. They got in a fight about the pregnancy in which Taylor supposedly said she was going to, quote, bring a kid home just to prove everyone wrong.
There's many things in life that you just want full transparency for, but some of the things you don't want, like your swimsuit being transparent. I mean, maybe you do, I guess, but depending on who you are.
Yeah.
But most of us don't want that being transparent.
Cover me, please.
Or your search history, potentially.
You know what? I'm safe. Open to the wind.
Nothing to hide. Nothing to hide whatsoever. But when it comes to your wireless bill, transparency is everything. Because so many wireless providers out there, it is a complete mystery. I mean, it's even hard to log into some of these wireless providers and even see your bill, let alone actually go through it line by line and see what they're actually charging you for. And you know what? I'm just sick of it. I'm tired of the big wireless providers. I know I'm overpaying for my phone bills. It's like $200+ a month for 2 lines, and it's insane.
It's despicable.
I'm not even paying for the phones either. It's just the service.
Right.
I own my phones outright. So it's just absolutely insane. I don't even feel like it's that great of coverage and reliability. And so, you know what? As soon as my contract is up, I'm getting out of my big wireless provider and I'm going to Mint Mobile, because you're getting all that high-speed data. You're getting the reliable coverage. They're using the T-Mobile 5G network, and plans start at just $15 a month, even unlimited. So it's just a no-brainer. I mean, you can save tons of money, put that money towards something else, save that extra money, invest it, whatever, and get the same coverage, same plan, essentially.
Same everything. I mean, I feel like when I first went on the Mint Mobile website, I was like, oh crap, I don't want to get a whole new wireless bill. But the plan I saw, around $360, full year, unlimited data up front, you're good.
That's nice. So you can just prepay it too. 3, 6, or 12-month plans,
right,
and just get it out of the way.
I forget about it.
Forget about it for a full year. I mean, that is really nice, that flexibility. You can even bring your current phone and number, so you don't have to get a new phone. You don't have to get a new number.
Text everyone being like, hey, new phone.
New number. Yeah, you don't have to do any of that. You just bring it over. The process online is real easy. They'll give you a new eSIM for your phone. It's, you can get activated on their network in 10, 15 minutes. It's super, super easy. So you're going to ditch that overpriced wireless bill that you've got right now and get yourself on Mint Mobile. To get your new wireless plan for just $15 a month, just go to mintmobile.com/lightsout. That's mintmobile.com/lightsout.
Cut your wireless bill to $15 a month at mintmobile.com/lightsout. That's it. There's no catch. Upfront payment of $45 for 3 months, $90 for 6 months, or $180 for 12 months. Plan required. $15 per month equivalent. Taxes and fees extra. Initial plan term only. Greater than 50 gigabytes may slow when network is busy. Includes up to 20 gigabytes hotspot. Capable device required. Availability, speed, and coverage varies. See mintmobile.com.
Things are real desperate for Taylor at this point, so she began looking everywhere for a possible escape. And she knew it was just a matter of time before she was caught, and her life, in her eyes, would essentially be over. Whenever others would doubt her, she turned to her friend, Reagan, who always had her back. Reagan's mother was often surprised by how deeply she cared for Taylor. Whenever her mom expressed concern that Taylor seemed a little off, Reagan would always defend her. As her mother recalled, Reagan felt like Taylor was probably overwhelmed with everything, and she was trying to be that one person there for her when nobody else was. It's just, what an amazing person Reagan was.
Right.
I mean, to know, obviously have an inkling that something's off with Taylor.
Right.
But to just still be a good friend and be there for her, during this time, says a lot about her. Nobody had any clue what Taylor was planning to do next. Her strategy included either stealing a newborn or kidnapping an unborn baby from an expectant mother. And Taylor took the latter option. She scoured the state of Texas utilizing her fake aliases to find the right woman. She investigated several strangers in the weeks leading up to the murder. And her sinister plan turned into sickening actions when Taylor realized she knew just the right person. On October 8th, Taylor visited Reagan, who was about 35 weeks pregnant at this point, and was about to give birth in the coming weeks. Taylor brought coffee and a gift and ranted about her frustrations with her own pregnancy and how she just couldn't wait to just have her baby. Which again, she's past her due date at this point. And I mean, you don't typically, you go in for induction, a doctor's going to, suggest doing that. And I mean, in some cases, if the pregnancy is healthy, they'll let you, carry to 40 weeks, potentially, or 42. It really just depends. But again, there is no doctor. This is all fake.
This is all made up.
She's just going, past her supposed due date, at this point, and really just trying to figure out what she's going to do next. And so she goes over there to meet with Reagan. And while there, she scopes out the house and visited with Reagan and her husband, Homer, for a while before heading out. Reagan later messaged Taylor on Facebook thanking her for stopping by, which is one of the last messages she ever sent. The next day on October 9th, Wade and Taylor were finally going to make their trip to the hospital to be induced. Wade, however, needed to sell a load of hogs for several $1,000s beforehand and said he'd meet Taylor there. She told Wade that she wanted to go to the hospital in Idabel, Oklahoma to avoid her mom. So Taylor and Wade said goodbye, and he drove 4 hours away to this prospective buyer of his hogs. And when Wade arrived with the hogs, the customer was very, very confused because he didn't order any hogs and had no clue what Wade was talking about. The soon-to-be father then showed him the text he'd received that morning from him confirming the order. But there was a big problem, though. The customer never sent those messages, and the number didn't even belong to him.
You might be wondering who did the number.
Who could have possibly did this?
Yeah.
And at this point, an eerie feeling came over Wade. He asked about Taylor, and the buyer claimed that he had messaged her back and forth a couple weeks ago about the hogs, but hadn't talked to her since. Wade, of course, was like, oh, God. So he hops back in the truck and starts racing towards the hospital in Idabel, where he planned to confront Taylor about this whole hog incident. The strange events that took place in the weeks leading up to this day were starting to make more sense to Wade. I think at this point he was like, okay, what else is she lying about if she's lying about this? And around the time that Wade was heading towards Taylor, Homer called Reagan's mom, Jessica, because he had a terrible, unshakable feeling. He had just learned that Reagan hadn't shown up for work, and her responses to his text didn't sound like her at all. Jessica left work immediately and headed over to Reagan's house to check up on her daughter. Jessica's granddaughter's daycare was on the way to Reagan's house, so she decided to make a stop there just in case. When she found out that her granddaughter had never been dropped off that morning, she sensed something had gone horribly wrong. As Jessica pulled up to her daughter's house, she noticed that the garage door was open, and this was very, very unusual. And she also noticed that there was blood streaks coming out of the garage and down the driveway. And when she actually got out of her vehicle and went into the garage, she saw blood smeared on the garage walls and floors. She also noticed a bloody fingerprint on the door handle, and it was at this point that she realized something horrible had happened here. Because kind of at first she thought maybe like one of their dogs like pricked their paw or something like that. It was maybe just dog's blood. But I mean, as soon as she saw the smears and bloody handprint, I think she knew what she was going to find inside was not going to be good. So, of course, she knew that Reagan needed her, and she was very, very concerned at this point, and she had no choice but to go inside. And as soon as she stepped foot inside, her heart sank as she spotted a bloody footprint in the doorway. And then Jessica saw something that a mother should never see. Her murdered daughter on the floor, surrounded by a pool of her own blood. She called out for her, begging for Reagan to answer. Her hair was soaked with red, and she laid utterly lifeless on the ground. The indescribable feeling that Jessica likely felt in this moment is impossible to even comprehend. this point, she called 911 and screamed on the phone that someone had murdered her daughter. Her husband, Marcus, and friend Chris raced to the scene after Jessica told them. And they found her on her knees outside the home, sobbing, absolutely gutted. Chris actually went inside and found Reagan's daughter hiding inside her bedroom. Reportedly, Reagan's daughter ran to Chris when he saw her and recognized her, but she was just in complete shock. He covered her with a blanket to shield her from the horror, and then had to physically step over Reagan's deceased body in order to get in and out of the little girl's room. And she just kept asking, "Where's my mommy? Where's my mommy?" And of course, how do you even begin to answer that in this type of situation? Because Reagan's daughter was only 3 years old at the time, but was thankfully unharmed. But understandably was absolutely traumatized. When police arrived, they realized Reagan had been killed very recently, which initiated a frenzied search for the killer. And they tried to piece together what monster could have possibly done this to her. Nobody could have possibly imagined at the time that her seemingly innocent friend Taylor had been the one, in fact, to kill Reagan. But just forewarning, the next part here is extremely graphic as we kind of describe the crime scene in a little bit more detail. While Wade was delivering the hogs, Taylor wasn't on her way to the hospital like she said. She was actually on her way over to Reagan's house, where she had this whole elaborate plan to murder this expected mother. According to her phone data, she drove to Reagan's house around 6:30 a.m. and left her house close to 8 a.m. And the crime scene made detectives certain of one thing. Reagan didn't go down without a fight. It seems she did everything she possibly could to save her life and that of her unborn daughters, as well as her living daughters. And this is all evident from the autopsy as well as evidence collected at the crime scene. But what was very clear was that Taylor bludgeoned Reagan with a 4-pound decorative jar from Reagan's wedding, an item that Taylor had photographed.
Right.
The medical examiner also noted that Taylor used the blunt and sharp end of a hammer when attempting to kill Reagan, who suffered 5 skull fractures and a broken nose, as well as over 30 cuts to her scalp. Just absolutely brutal. Reagan had to endure the grisliest torture imaginable in the last moments of her life, which is hard to even wrap your head around. The evidence pointed to a prolonged, painful, and merciless fight. She had bruises and cuts all over her hands and body, with one of her fingertips just barely hanging on and an acrylic nail ripped off. One of her fingers jutted to the side, showing that it had been dislocated while trying to hold Taylor off. I mean, this was a violent battle that took place. There were pools of blood and spatter patterns that suggested that Reagan had been cut and stabbed in at least 5 different parts of her house. There were clumps of hair and blood smeared on the walls and the furniture, which implied that she fought to the very, very end, until she was physically unable to move. In total, she suffered over 98 incised wounds, 15 stab wounds, and 39 lacerations to the neck head area, resulting in a heinously long and agonizing death. Taylor then used a medical-grade scalpel to cut her stomach open from one hip to the other. The sharp blade that she used was found buried in Reagan's neck. Just horrible. And in the days leading up to the murder, investigators discovered that Taylor had spent hours researching how to perform a C-section at 35 weeks specifically, despite having 0 surgical training, which also just shows this was completely premeditated.
Absolutely.
Detectives believe that Taylor felt she couldn't leave Reagan alive, but had to quickly escape with the baby. And at one point during the massacre, Reagan's daughter came out of her room, obviously hearing all this commotion and screaming and loud noise coming outside. And when Taylor noticed her standing there in absolute terror, she screamed at her to go back to her room. This is one of the most horrible parts about this whole thing, is the fact that her poor daughter came out and saw her mother being murdered. It's impossible to imagine just the trauma and what her little daughter must have been thinking in this moment. I mean, at only a few years old, you can't really comprehend this, the same way that an adult or older child can. But a 3-year-old does understand pain. It does understand screaming. It does understand crying. And it understands that this is not supposed to happen. Right. And it's just hard to even think about. It's just horrible. And again, Reagan is just weeks away from giving birth to her daughter, and Taylor ruthlessly cut her daughter, Braxlyn, from her mom's stomach. I mean, it's evil on a level that it can't even be described. I mean, this is just pure evil in its purest form. Sadly, Reagan's family didn't even know about this whole situation that had unfolded until they saw it on Facebook shortly after the crime was reported. That's how they found out that Reagan had been murdered and that Braxlyn was missing. They supposedly found out at around 11:30 that morning while they were still at the scene. Because of course they realized that Braxlyn wasn't there.
Right.
Only Reagan was. So they're wondering, oh my God, somebody has taken her.
Where's the baby?
Right.
At 9:36 a.m. on October 9th, 2020, Taylor called 911 and sobbed while alleging that she had just given birth in her car. Let's take a listen to that call.
New Boston 911, what's your emergency?
I have a state trooper behind me, and I need an ambulance because I started having my baby.
Okay, stay on the line. I'm going to get you to LifeNet.
Not a trooper.
Okay, stay on the line. Stay on the line. It's going to be okay. Stay on the line. Has he pulled you over, ma'am?
Yeah.
Okay, just stay calm. It's going to be okay.
Your emergency?
I just need an ambulance to get to Annabelle.
What's your address?
I'm working on the road. Oh, my baby.
She's located at.
It looks like on my computer system is saying 780 West Front Street in DeKalb.
We're going to Annabelle for my doctor, and I need to get up there.
She said she's gone into labor. She has a state trooper behind her.
Okay.
Yeah, he was pulling her over as she called.
All right, ma'am, are you still here with me?
Ma'am?
Are you still here with us?
Yeah, I'm pretty
What's the phone number that you're calling from? Okay, tell me exactly what happened.
I started having my baby.
Okay, all right, just stay here with me. How old are you?
The difference between Jessica's phone call and the horror of just seeing, her daughter, not knowing, of course, at that point what had happened, but still just seeing her daughter's lifeless body. And then Taylor's 911 call where she's just lying.
Yeah. Performing
and all in a way to try to absolve her from the murder.
Yes. Fully trying to convince the dispatcher that I just had this baby,
right?
35 minutes ago or whatever she said, and I need an ambulance, and she's putting on this whole hysteric act and trying to sound convincing. And it's like, is she really believing this fantasy at this point, or is she just putting on a performance to try to get herself out of the situation?
Right. Again, I think it might be a mix of both, honestly. The Texas Highway Patrol trooper who was behind her when Taylor placed that call then pulled her over for driving erratically near DeKalb, Texas, as she was heading towards Idabel, Oklahoma. When the trooper approached, he saw the newborn baby looking very faint in her lap, with the umbilical cord and placenta pushed down Taylor's pants. She couldn't help but notice that she was covered in thick, dried blood, but none was coming from her pants. She claimed that she had just had her baby on the side of the road and that it wasn't breathing.
What's wrong, ma'am?
I had my baby and I'm trying to get to Idabel Hospital.
Idabel?
Yeah, my husband's up there.
Why aren't you going to St. Michael's or somewhere?
We're going to Idabel. It's where my doctor is. I need to get up there.
Man, I need to call LifeNet or something like that. I can't let you drive. Let me get...
If you want to see this in full, there's, the documentary has it, and I found some clips on YouTube. I may or may not include it. It's blurred, of course, but it is just, the scene is just chaotic. It was a little strange to me that this trooper didn't like spring into action and try to, because as we'll talk about in a moment, Taylor is on this body cam footage, like kind of trying to do CPR on Braxlin, and the trooper just kind of stands there, kind of like not unsure of what to do. Maybe it's the first time I mean, it's a wild scene to show up to, but I mean,
Right.
through training, they're kind of supposed to like take over in life-saving efforts until an ambulance arrives. But he kind of like, I can't do anything. I've got an ambulance coming, and just kind of stands there awkwardly.
Right.
Which was kind of weird to me.
It's I wonder if it's procedural, if there's an issue there where, say he did take over, try to do compressions on the baby, and then.
Yeah, maybe there's something with infants that they don't, maybe they're not trained in infant CPR, because it is different. You have to be very, very careful.
Right.
When you do that. But I mean, also too, there's a baby here that's still attached to the placenta, and like this mom, and yeah, maybe it was just kind of a call he made at the time. But I mean, she's just, Taylor's just acting beside herself.
Right,
and,
losing it.
Like, doing baby CPR with, Braxlin in her lap. It is a full-on distressing scene all around.
Just to briefly confirm, though, because I did look it up, Texas officers, it's almost nationwide, are required to know top to bottom, infant to elderly CPR. First to arrive performs it. So
he should. Yeah,
in Texas. He was trained to do it. So.
Yeah. So and from what I saw in the comments and stuff, a lot of people kind of have a similar point of view of like, it is very weird that he didn't jump into it. I mean, he's a first responder, and like,
right. He should be responding.
He should be responding to this, and I think even Jessica and Reagan's family is concerned by that too. Of like, not sure if there had been a way to stop what ultimately happens, but I'm sure they would have felt better having a first responder
do something,
attempting to save Braxton's life, as opposed to just sitting there while she's in the arms of a killer. So yeah, that to me is definitely very strange.
Absolutely.
And, well, not luckily, but an ambulance did end up arriving and taking over. But I felt like there's maybe more that the trooper could have done.
Absolutely.
In this situation.
I think he's a traffic cop through and through, pulled over this person for driving erratically, and when he realized
this is far more than that.
Yeah, he was
froze.
like, I don't know.
Yeah.
Taylor was distraught, her eyes practically bulging from her head as she had been clearly sobbing. She explained that she was on her way to McCurtain Memorial Hospital, where Wade was waiting for her. The trooper also saw Taylor attempting CPR on the baby at one point while pulled over. He wasn't quite sure how to handle the situation, as it all seemed very strange. An ambulance arrived to transport Taylor and Braxlin to the hospital. Apparently, when Taylor called Wade to tell them that she had given birth while driving, it was almost like he didn't believe her. He sounded annoyed and confused by the whole situation, which makes sense when you consider that he had just gone through this massive lie with the hogs. Shortly after arriving at the hospital, though, Braxlin tragically passed away. The trauma of being cut out in such a barbaric way, along with not having the proper care that a newborn infant needs, caused her to slowly die after being stolen from her mother.
Yeah, and I mean, there's a reason you clamp the umbilical cord and cut it, because the baby needs to transfer to breathing with their lungs and not through the placenta. And so that was, Taylor didn't even think through that. And again, I don't know. I don't think a trooper would necessarily be trained or know how to do that, but it seems like, I don't know. It's just an overall tragic situation.
Yeah.
But yeah, for somebody like Taylor who, had this whole plan of like, I'm going to take this baby and then make it my own. And it was like, she didn't even think through like, well, I got to make sure that the baby lives.
Right.
That thought doesn't ever seem to be
occurred to her. And
something that registered with her.
It's so mortifying, the fact that, obviously it's mortifying that she first cuts Braxlin out of Reagan, but then stuffs the placenta down her pants. It's just fucking foul and so, I know it's unimaginable. It's unfathomable. Really.
No, it's completely psychotic.
Yes.
Yes. This is a complete psychotic episode that's happening here.
Absolutely.
There's no words to even describe it or make it make sense. It doesn't make, it's just
No.
complete psychopath behavior.
Doctors began to wonder what the true story was, as Taylor wouldn't let them conduct any sort of physical exam on her. That, coupled with the recent discovery of Reagan's body and the abduction of her baby, raised all sorts of red flags. They had no choice but to call the police.
Yeah, I mean, this would be the easiest thing to sniff out for any medical professional.
Yeah.
Here's a woman who's being whisked to the hospital because she just supposedly had her baby, on the way 35 minutes ago. As somebody who's been a part of the birth process recently, it is a very, very messy process.
Right.
And, doctors, if you have your baby in the car, doctors need to do an exam because you can die.
Right.
Because they got to make sure that you're not hemorrhaging, your uterus isn't, hemorrhaging, and make sure that everything has detached from inside, that there's not remnants of the placenta still there, and clean all that up. And so for her to come in and be like, no, don't touch me. I don't want any sort of exam. I mean, dead giveaway.
Dead giveaway, absolutely. When detectives finally arrived, they questioned her extensively, trying to get Taylor to confess. They already knew,
yeah, they know what's up. They've already been to the scene. They know Reagan's deceased. They know
a baby's missing. Yeah.
Okay, we found Braxton. Oh, Braxton was with you.
Right.
It's just a matter of now getting her to, they don't even need her to admit at this point. They've got everything they need, but to see if she's going to keep these lies up.
Right. At first, Taylor just played dumb in the hospital room, saying she had no clue what they were talking about, and she insisted repeatedly that she had just given birth. Detectives gave her one option: get a vaginal exam to prove it. She had to consent or risk looking guilty, so a physician arrived to inspect her, and only took one glance to clearly see that Taylor had definitely not just had a baby. Even after the exam, she tried to maintain that she wasn't lying, but the detectives had enough information to finally arrest her and identify her as their prime suspect.
Yeah, let's take a look at some of this body cam footage, because this is fucking nuts. I mean, she's out of her mind. And it's very obvious. I'm going to start the clip from the doctor coming back out of the exam, and he's just like, yeah, she's not.
She didn't give birth.
Yeah, it's very obvious.
Doesn't look like she had a baby.
It doesn't?
No.
Okay.
Does not look like she had a baby there. Come here. Ready. Well, here's where we're at, Taylor. And I'm just going to be brutally honest. Okay? Right now, the DA down there who I've talked to believes that you're a cold-blooded killer and that you plotted for the last 8 months to murder this woman and steal her baby. And right now, the evidence is there. They can prove it without a shadow of a doubt that that's what happened. They can prove that you murdered that woman and that you're a cold-blooded murderer. How heinous is it? Some woman, everybody's happy, they're having showers, and then somebody comes along and cuts her damn baby out of her gut. That's what we got right now, and that's what you need to understand. That's the point where we're at. We're past all this nonsense about, I wasn't there, I didn't kill nobody. We're past all of that. We know it. We know you did it. There's no doubt whatsoever. And the only thing I'm giving you a chance, because like I said, you seem kind of confused, like maybe you've been going through some depression or something, or maybe you took some medication or something that like I said, that made a good person make bad choices. I don't know.
And then we'll show you the moment she's arrested at the hospital.
Hey.
Take her to jail.
Okay, they need to take the IV out.
I'll get a nurse in there with you right now.
Okay. On your inner leg? Yeah.
Thank you.
Go ahead and get in. Watch toes.
In those circumstances, she'd have her phone or purse.
Okay.
All right?
Okay.
She's to be separated from her boyfriend who's down there.
Is he being booked in right now?
Huh?
If he's being booked in
He's
right
not being
now?
booked in.
Okay.
She's the only one that's going to be booked in.
Okay.
You know the baby's dead.
Yeah, I heard.
Okay. What?
We'll call A-hole real quick and tell him, hey, put that dude somewhere not in.
Yes, that's what I was telling him. All right, thank you.
You're welcome. I'm still rolling. I'm going to roll until I get her in.
Huh?
I'm still rolling.
Okay.
The fact that the detective was so careful and patient with the situation is remarkable given the disgusting crime that Taylor just committed. While investigators questioned her, they also took Wade in for an interview once he arrived at the hospital. During the conversation, they informed him that Taylor was never pregnant and that she had just killed Reagan and her baby, a shocking blow. He was devastated to admit that his family had been right about her, and he was absolutely embarrassed that he never believed anyone.
Yeah, and he actually says this in the interrogation room to detectives. He's just like, yeah, they were right.
They were right. They were right. He was persistent that he didn't see this coming and had no clue that Taylor had been faking the pregnancy. When they told him how she was ultimately able to abduct Braxlin, he was even more stunned. You can't begin to imagine what would have been running through his head in this moment, knowing that all this was unfolding before his eyes, and he never knew. Perhaps willfully. I mean, I think there's probably a part of Wade that believed everything that everyone was saying to him, but he chose actively not to, which, I don't know, I can kind of empathize with. You, again, you don't want to believe that someone he never loved her, but someone who you might have a child with is lying to you.
Yeah, and I think had it not been for the pregnancy, I think he would have been out.
100%.
Like, I think
yes.
that's pretty clear. He only was holding on because, it's his baby mama, supposedly. Like, he just felt like that was the right thing to do for his child.
Right.
And so it's like, who wouldn't do that?
Right.
Yeah, that must have been, you can watch it in the documentary because you just see him, like, it's all hitting him.
Yeah.
And, like, it's probably hitting him on multiple levels, not just the fact that she just did this heinous thing, but all of the lies, realizing that everything that she's told him is just complete, utter bullshit.
Right. Taylor was subsequently arrested at 27 years old from the hospital the same day she killed Reagan and Braxlin.
So as we're seeing, even in this case that we're covering today, mental health is just so incredibly important. And, a lot of times it can be really difficult to figure out where to go, who to see. When I've gone through the process before in the past, it was like trying to find somebody local and then trying to figure out how that's going to work into my schedule. How am I going to get off from work and then go see the therapist? And then, it wasn't covered by insurance. And so it was super expensive per session and obviously well worth the money. I think if there's anything you should invest your money in, it's your mental health. It affects your physical health. It affects everything in your life, your relationships. And so it's not something that you should, take lightly. It's critical to make sure you're in a good headspace. And, when things come your way in life and, we all face challenges and face adversities, it's a lot of us just like want to take that on our own, right?
Absolutely. And I've had similar experiences to you where I've kind of been demoralized, even just in the looking process, because it is rather difficult. And it's especially difficult to find something that's in network. I think that's the largest barrier for people trying to get into therapy, into, checking their mental health.
Yeah, it's definitely unfortunate that that's the way that sort of our medical system's set up. But a service like Rula is really sort of bridging the divide for, and I really love what they're doing because they're making it extremely convenient. It's easy to check to see which providers take your insurance. And then what's great is that you'll be able to find a provider that can work around your schedule. And I think that is super critical these days with, how much all of us are working and, our lives are all busy. And so being able to find a, licensed medical professional to and even a specialist too, who maybe specializes in if you need couples therapy or you're going through, a grief counselor, or somebody, something really specialized to your situation. Rula really makes it easy to drill down and find those types of people who that's all they do.
Right. Well, and Rula, they partner with over 100 insurance plans, making the average copay just $15 per session. That's the cheapest I've ever seen.
Yeah, that's crazy.
And it's real therapy. It's licensed professionals, and it's just at this low price that just about anyone can afford.
Yeah, and also in addition to therapists, you can get access to psychiatrists as well. So if you need help with medication management and things like that, Rula can help connect you with somebody who can definitely help find that personalized solution for you. And you can really be picky, which is great too. You're not kind of like pigeonholed into one particular therapist. If you see somebody and you're just like, yeah, we're not communicating, it just seems like they don't get it, then you can kind of change your preferences and continue the search to find somebody who you really connect with. Because I think that's important, especially with therapy, is that you find somebody who you feel like you can connect on that human level and really, build that rapport with, so that you feel comfortable enough to really dive deep into those, issues, whatever it may be, and, get the most for your money, right? You want to really feel like you're getting something out of it. Rula's committed to making sure that you find the right person, you're getting the quality care you deserve. And then it also sort of keeps track of your therapy progress. It's all in this, beautiful dashboard. It keeps track of everything for you. It's one place you have to go to, and they support you through the entire thing, from therapy to medication management. They have an extremely diverse network of professionals, and they make it easy for you to get the care that you need. So thousands of people are already using Rula to get affordable, high-quality therapy that's actually covered by insurance.
Visit Rula.com/lightsout to get started. That's RULA.com/lightsout. You deserve mental health care that works with you, not against your budget.
After her arrest, Taylor was repeatedly interviewed on what happened in Reagan's home. And her story changed constantly, and she, of course, tried every different angle she possibly could to try to skirt around her responsibility. For example, she told investigators that Reagan asked her to take Braxton. She claimed the expectant mother had already been attacked by a drug cartel and was supposedly begging her to remove the baby so it could survive. Like, what?
What the fuck are you talking about?
Yeah. Trying anything and everything. Lie. Right. That's all she does is lie. Backed in the corner, lie. Oh, that lie doesn't work? How about this lie?
How about this one? Drug cartel.
Yeah, come on. There are actually numerous other fabricated stories she told fellow inmates later on, too, which suggested that she saw a black man do it, of course. She's throwing out everything.
I think it's interesting that both of the stories we're relating right now both have to do with non-white people. It's either the Mexican cartel,
right? Yeah,
or it's black people.
Yeah, she's trying to pull out any and everything, including exposing her own prejudice.
Absolutely.
She also told investigators that she felt Wade was never truly excited about the baby. When they weren't buying her cartel story, Taylor claimed that the two had simply had a physical altercation and that it ended in Reagan's death. But the evidence was clear as day. There was no doubt in investigators' minds. They know exactly what happened here. And on December 10th, 2020, Taylor was indicted for capital murder and kidnapping. A month later, prosecutors announced they would seek the death penalty. In early 2021, Taylor was indicted on her second count of capital murder and held without bail. And then on October 3rd, 2022, Taylor was convicted of the charges just under 2 years after the murder. And, this is just so shocking and appalling. I think this was the proper way to go here. I don't really see, and this is what the family wanted. Multiple family members talked about how they felt like this was appropriate, that she should face the death penalty in this case. And about a month later, Taylor was sentenced to death, and she became the youngest of 7 women currently waiting for execution in the state of Texas. As you can probably imagine, the subsequent trial was very tedious. The jury heard from 142 witnesses during the testimony phase, which lasted approximately 1 month. It seemed that the people who are closely involved felt a strong sense of guilt for not intervening. Wade also told the court he never really loved Taylor. His mother, Connie, said during the trial that Taylor seemed to want a close relationship, and she couldn't tell if Wade wanted that or not. She claimed that she observed major issues during the relationship, including the fact that Taylor didn't have custody of her kids, which, yeah, any mom would be like, that's fucking weird. What's wrong with her? What did she do? But unfortunately, she felt like there was nothing she could do. Wade admitted that he missed some red flags about Taylor, but really denied knowing anything about the fake pregnancy or the murder scheme. He was pretty adamant about that. He said, she's very believable. For anything I questioned, she had an answer. She always had an answer for everything, and she had an excuse and a way to believe exactly what she was telling me. She even had all the backup paperwork on all of it.
Well, and again, with Wade coming, from his background, he's not going to be looking over this paperwork with a fine-tooth comb. He's going to see that as paperwork. He's going to hear Taylor's story supposedly back up the paperwork, and he's going to be like, okay, yeah, checks out for me.
Taylor would lie to him about everything: her employment, coworkers, supervisors, job duties, promotions, money, medical history, and even her own family. I mean, you can imagine just the disbelief Wade must have been in throughout this whole testimony and just hearing all these things. It didn't help that people often blamed him for being the one closest to her. And it'd be like, how did you never know the truth? Although Wade wasn't found guilty in connection with the crime, Reagan's widower, Homer, actually filed a civil suit against both Wade and Taylor for his wife and child's deaths, as in it kind of alleges, basically, I'll kind of summarize it, but basically he filed a civil suit against Wade and Taylor because Taylor was driving Wade's vehicle that day. And, Taylor obviously still had Braxton in his vehicle, technically. So there's some liability there civilly. And Braxton was still alive during, at least part of that car ride to the hospital. And so therefore, that's why Wade is named in this civil suit in addition to Taylor. And he's asking for an unspecified amount of money to cover expenses and for mental anguish. So just wanted to put that in there as a note. But Wade told the court he didn't know how to explain the betrayal and the lies and never wanted or expected anything like this to happen, of course. Wade claimed to have no clue what her motive was, but he thought it might have something to do with the fear of losing him. He admitted in court that she was probably waiting for the moment he'd tell her he loved her, but he just never did. According to Wade, their relationship was an emotional roller coaster. However, she always helped care for the livestock and manage the household while he worked. One day, she told him she was pretty much pregnant, which is objectively strange thing to say, kind of a strange wording. But he was like, I took her for her word. Right. And, was looking forward to being a father. They also questioned Taylor's mom, Shona, at the trial about why she didn't say anything this entire time. And she responded that there wasn't much you can do about a fake pregnancy and that she felt there was no need for her to come up with a plan. The lie would eventually be exposed, she thought, and would never come to such a hideous end, which hindsight's 20/20, of course, but I don't think she first saw her daughter going to the extreme lengths that she did.
No.
But still, it's like, I don't know.
Just the lie alone.
I don't like it.
I don't like it either. I can understand where her mom's coming from, but I also just think it you didn't see this absolutely horrific act coming, but it's still wrong to see an entire family being spun, along this web of lies, and you're the only one with the real information that could, maybe snap them out of it.
Yeah. I feel more could have been done, probably. But again, hindsight's 20/20.
Right.
Taylor's brother Zachary testified that they had endured a rough childhood. He said their father would bring them to drug houses as children and use them as pawns during his divorce from their mother. Zachary explained that when their dad was chasing other women or drugs, he and Taylor were put on the back burner. And he compared that to how Taylor acted whenever she was chasing another man, saying that instead of the focus being on her children, it was on herself. And for her defense, Taylor's attorneys brought in a neurologist who conducted both physical and psychological exams to help determine a diagnosis. He claimed that Taylor had frontal lobe syndrome, which is a condition involving a complex web of cognitive, behavioral, and emotional disturbances. The specialist explained that damage to the brain's frontal lobe disrupts executive functions, resulting in severe personality changes, poor impulse control, and difficulty regulating social behavior. One doctor said that something was very wrong with her brain. I think one of the neurologists just flat out said Taylor Parker's brain is broken.
Right.
But the medical report noted gaps in the folds of Taylor's brain, which could indicate cerebral atrophy, affecting impulsivity and inhibition. The neurologist said the frontal and temporal lobes were the most atrophied areas. So, that was kind of their defense. Like, yeah, she's not right in the head. Her brain's broken, which, yeah, I think we all can see that.
We agree.
Yeah. Her defense team also tried to use Taylor's supposed sexual abuse at a young age to help their case. But ultimately, this didn't really affect the outcome in the end. The prosecutors tried to counter the mental illness defense tactic with their own medical records. A forensic pathologist evaluated the case, said he couldn't find any kind of mental deterioration. He said she stuck to her plan and there was no remorse afterward. So let it be clear that a mental condition does not condone what Taylor did whatsoever. These test results were brought forward from Taylor's defense, whose mission was obviously to reduce her sentence, get her, off of death row. Her unthinkable actions, of course, are never excusable by any means. There's just no reason for it. And it's even more heartbreaking considering the fact that Reagan's young daughter heard everything, saw what was going on potentially. I mean, it's just absolutely horrible. And of course, the pictures shown in court were enough for any jury to find Taylor guilty because, of course, they had to go through all of the crime scene photos. The evidence was gut-churning. It was hard to even look at. One crime scene investigator testified that it was the worst crime scene he'd ever seen before. A psychologist then brought up a phenomenon called elimination murder, where you have no hard feelings toward the person, but they are in the way of something that you want. And this somehow was meant to reduce the impact of the crime, making it seem less personal. And for some, it almost seemed better if Taylor wasn't specifically out for Reagan. But at the end of the day, it doesn't truly matter what the reasoning was. I mean, the end result was the same. Another legal argument was that Taylor technically didn't kidnap Braxton because she was dead before being cut out. And this was proven to be a bogus theory, though, because doctors testified that Braxton was still alive when she got to the hospital, even though it was brief. An EMT who was on the scene also claimed that he had resuscitated Braxton and found a pulse on the way to the hospital. The state reasoned that Taylor wouldn't have taken the baby with her if she believed Braxton was already dead, which makes sense. Another element that played a part in her death sentence was the fact that the Texas Penal Code considers a fetus an individual at any stage of gestation. The state determined that Taylor caused the infant's death due to the inability to provide necessary care to the child. In the hospital, Braxton's heart was inconsistent and she periodically flatlined before gaining her pulse back. One nurse ended up staying with the baby until her heart finally gave out so she wouldn't have to die alone, which just gotta say, NICU nurses and nurses in general, but especially nurses in the maternity ward are some of the most amazing people ever. I'm forever grateful to every single nurse. It's amazing the work that they do. It's truly incredible. An OBGYN that Taylor worked for testified at the trial and at one point broke down on the stand and he claimed it had to be extremely painful for Reagan and that he didn't know how anybody could ever do that because Taylor cut the uterus open from the back in order to get to Braxton and then forcefully ripped it out of Reagan's body, which is absolutely horrific. Then the medical examiner gave a gut-wrenching testimony about the state of the placenta, which had been crudely and recklessly cut out, which there's a reason that there's doctors who removed the placenta. It had a purple press-on nail consistent with the one that had fallen off her finger stuck inside. And this proved to the detectives and the jury that Reagan was still alive and conscious when Taylor began pulling the placenta out. The embedded nail suggests that Reagan was trying to take it back from Taylor during the attack right before her death. And those final moments that Reagan endured are absolutely incomprehensible. Detectives also testified to finding a horse tranquilizer inside Taylor's purse, which would have been a less painful way to go. But for whatever reason, Taylor didn't end up using it, and Reagan was awake while desperately trying to keep Braxton inside her. Throughout this whole ordeal, it's just unbelievable. Aside from the physical evidence, the trial revealed disturbing facts about Taylor's past. Because she utilized more than 30 fake aliases, including using her previous last names, Morton and Wakasey, she reportedly used, as we talked about earlier, a voice-altering device, a modulator to impersonate many of these characters over the phone on countless occasions. After her weight loss surgery, she would apparently always flirt with men while being married. She wanted to constantly show off her body and showed up work sometimes dressed as if she was going to the club. The jury also learned about her numerous affairs, including one time when her ex-husband caught her having sex with another man in a car. And the murder, this is the result of just one of many, many lies. And it was impossible to include all of the lies that have been told over the years because they were 100 miles long. I mean, Taylor just lied through life.
Right. Well, and again, I think she lied to the point where we don't even know all.
No,
the
there's
courts don't
still
even know.
undiscovered ones,
Right.
I'm sure. And she just pretended to be someone that she wasn't. She curated years and years of false narratives and made up stories for this fake life that, I think she did it for a life that she wanted and hoped to have in reality, but didn't know how to achieve that without lying her way there.
Absolutely. And just incapable of doing the work to get yourself there. Work on yourself as a person, work on, professionally, whatever it takes. She was not willing to do that.
No, operated with no integrity whatsoever.
Right.
So basically through the trial, we found out that throughout Wade and her 14-month relationship, she orchestrated multiple criminal schemes and attempted to purchase more than $20 million in real estate. So that ranch wasn't even the only one. There was other pieces of real estate she attempted to purchase fraudulently. She utilized more than 30 fake aliases, including her own mother, in order to maintain this intricate web of lies. And Taylor, she pled not guilty during the trial, but later on confessed to multiple people that she did indeed kill Reagan and claimed that the murder didn't go as planned. The statement goes to show she absolutely premeditated this murder and the abduction of Braxlin. Delusionally, she somehow thought she could just go take the baby, kill Reagan, and just go on with life and start this new life with Wade with Braxlin as their own, which is
insane,
psychopathic. I mean, she is 100% a psychopath. There's just no other way to describe her. And then on October 3rd, 2022, Taylor was convicted of the two charges just 2 years after the murder, and she was sentenced to be executed shortly after she was convicted. Here's a clip of Reagan's mother, Jessica Brooks, reacting to Taylor's sentencing.
Heavy burden feels lifted. I feel like now we can start trying to heal. We don't have this over our heads. We know where she's going to be. We know where she's at, and she's taken care of.
And what I love is that the judge's final words in court that day were, "Take her to death row."
So Taylor later told the news that she didn't believe the charges against her at all. She reported that she convinced herself that she didn't actually do anything. But her realization finally came when she had to face the autopsy photos.
Yeah, face what you did.
Right. This isn't just a fantasy.
Denying it. It's despicable.
It's horrible. She started believing that her place was in prison and she didn't want to be let out. She also told journalists that she, quote-unquote, found God, like many others, behind bars. She claimed Jesus hit her straight on, flesh to flesh. And she apparently took the heartbreaking victim impact statements with her to remind her of what she did while on the quote-unquote road to redemption, which I fucking hate it when people, they do horrible actions and then usually to excuse those actions, they're just like, well, let me turn to God. Let me get super religious. That way, this is my testimony. This is not just a horrible act I've committed. This is not me being a psychopathic murderer. This was a way for me to get closer with Jesus. Just
get the fuck out of here.
Get the fuck out of here. According to court documents, before and after the trial, Taylor faked numerous medical emergencies, filed fake grievances, and clashed with both guards and inmates. She also supposedly engaged in several romantic relationships with other inmates and pen pals. One day, a guard noticed she had ripped up her prison uniform to make it look more risque and to cause problems. She was supposedly known for trying to seduce the correctional officers. On multiple occasions, Taylor also asked her fellow inmates to write fake witness testimonies for her to use in trial, as if that sort of stuff doesn't get checked out.
She's out of her mind.
Out of her mind.
You're on death row.
Yeah.
You're going to be executed, and you're still pulling this shit. It's like so deeply embedded in her at this point in her psyche that I don't think she knows anything else. Like, this is just who she is.
Right.
And it just continues.
Right. Her defense has tried to appeal her case multiple times, but all of them have been denied. Once all of her appeals have been exhausted, the state will be able to set a date for her execution. Her defense has tried to claim that she was discriminated against because she used to be overweight, and that the jury was being judgmental because of her active sex life and promiscuity.
Seems very weak. If that's the
very
best they have, yeah. They're like, what do you want us to do? There's nothing.
Saying,
we'll try this, but
like, you discriminated against me because I was overweight in America?
Yeah, no.
Because of the social media storm regarding her case, they argued Taylor's trial was set up to fail. In prison, however, Taylor is reportedly somewhat popular. A prison counselor reported that she seemed to thrive there, which almost makes it feel like no justice has really been served.
Because she's with her people.
Right. This is finally the people
she's with all the other criminals and all the other
Right.
liars and murderers, and she's probably comfortable.
Well, and here she can lie her ass off and no one can find out.
Yeah, exactly.
She can be the coolest person fucking
make
ever.
up whatever she wants.
Right. Taylor is in the same prison as convicted killer Yolanda Saldivar. Yolanda murdered the treasured and beloved music superstar Selena Quintanilla. In May 2026, the United States Supreme Court denied Taylor's appeal, meaning that she has now exhausted all major avenues to challenge her conviction. An execution date has not yet been set, but Taylor sits on death row in Texas with no further legal remedies available.
Yeah, she's one of 7 women on death row in Texas, and she's the youngest.
Right. Women on death row have excruciatingly long, monotonous days and rarely feel comfortable. Taylor now lives an isolated existence, spending 22 hours a day isolated in her small cell that's no bigger than a parking space.
As she fucking should.
In
Put
her
her in a
box.
box and throw away the key.
Although Taylor lives in horrible conditions, it can never resolve for what she did to Reagan, Braxton, and their family. As of 2026, Taylor is still in the Patrick L. O'Daniel unit at a prison in Gatesville, Texas. Emily, Reagan's sister, said that she was overwhelmed with happiness that Taylor was sentenced to death. She described Taylor as a burden in her life because Emily couldn't imagine her sister without thinking about her. Reagan's family also hopes to fight for legislation that would allow doctors to break their privacy laws to warn potential victims of violent crime. Reagan was only 21 years old when her life was tragically taken from her, and baby Braxton was robbed of the gift of living. Reagan's family hosted a memorial service for her shortly after her heartbreaking death. They continue to share her story and raise awareness of the dangers posed by someone like Taylor. Jessica said recently, "There is a constant battle between good and evil in this world that we don't see, and I know that God didn't do this." Her family does their best to explain their side in the new Netflix documentary, Maternal Instinct, Josh and I have been talking about, which premiered on June 12th of this year. The show aims to tell the family story without any input from Taylor, giving them the space to finally tell their story with no restraints. Watching the film is a great way to get a glimpse of the impact Reagan and Braxton's death had on all of them, and the emotional arc of the documentary allows the audience to really grasp this immense tragedy.
Yeah, and I think it did a good job at doing that because you definitely do feel some of the emotion.
Yeah.
And it just hits you like a train. You just like, oh my God. And it's just
It's awful. It's
unfathomable.
Awful. I mean, that's, like I said, Liv and I were crying when we were watching it. It's just...
It does. It brings you to tears. I mean, it's just the most heartbreaking story. And, you know, what really got me was they have a little clip of Jessica's 911 call, and it just was like gut-wrenching. You're just like, oh my God, I can't even imagine. And I appreciate that they didn't, you know, they just gave like tiny little glimpses of like crime scene photos, but nothing crazy.
No, all blurred.
You know, nothing is crazy graphic, but just enough to send the like image of like just how real and horrible this was and violent, and so that you fully understand, you know, and that's kind of the goal with going through it in more detail in this episode, is you, like, fully understand the sheer brutality and evil that Taylor inflicted on Reagan. It is just absolutely diabolical. I mean, it is and it's just, it makes me want to puke thinking that Taylor thinks she's like, I'm saved, I'm a Christian, blah blah. Shut the fuck up.
Yeah.
Nobody cares. Nobody wants to hear you. It's you are unforgiven.
Yeah, there's absolutely nothing you can do, and I don't know. I can't get over the fact that she really thought she could just steal Raxlin, go back to Wade. Hey, I got my baby. I got her baby.
Yeah. Look, my story panned out. Everything makes sense.
I'm not a liar.
When Wade was already suspicious from the jump and was already going to probably confront her about, dude, why'd you send me to go sell these hogs? And that was you?
That was you.
Yeah,
you lit my house on fire.
And that's the sad thing about this, is that this was already over long before she even murdered Reagan. I mean, it was falling apart already. And the fact that she just was so desperate and psychotic to go and do what she did to somebody who was a friend of hers, whose wedding she had is just
maybe the only real friend she had left. I think that's important. And I think that's why she chose her, because everyone else in her life had suspected her crimes or her lies. And Reagan was the only one who still was there for her.
It is just pure evil. There's no other way to put it. There's no way to explain what she did and who Taylor is. Then she's a literal demon.
Yeah, she's a demon, straight up. Jessica now says that her 8-year-old granddaughter is just like her mother Reagan, making everybody laugh and full of energy. They remember Reagan for being a wonderful mother, daughter, sister, and friend. Her kindness towards people who are having a hard time truly defined the wonderful memory that she's left behind. Maternal Instinct on Netflix covers even more details, so if you're interested in hearing the case from several different perspectives, please go give it a watch.
Yeah, I'd highly recommend it, especially because they do interview, both Wade's family and Reagan's family extensively, and you can really just get the first-hand account, and it hits so much harder. There's no way to possibly even put this story into a way that hits the same as the family telling it from their, on their own, and just seeing, more of the footage and 911 calls and stuff. It's just, like I said at the beginning, this is one of the most diabolical cases. And I feel like I say that a lot, but like this truly is just so heinous. I can't even begin to comprehend somebody doing this. And I think Taylor is absolutely a psychopath. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. I think she premeditated this. She was going to get what she wanted. At the end of the day, it didn't matter who got hurt in the process. And this is just who she is, who she's always been.
Right.
And she's been developing this monster within her this entire time. And just, I don't know. In this particular case, I think she's right where she should be. And I would fully support, the family's decision with, going for the death penalty in this. I mean, I think she is a danger to society. I think she's a danger to everybody she meets. Just look at her behavior in prison. I mean, who knows what else she'll do. So I think this is a capital punishment makes sense to me in this particular case. Doesn't always, but I think in this particular case, I don't know what else to do with somebody like this. There's no hope for her.
I just think the fact that the lies started so early, and again, we keep saying hindsight is 20/20, but I just wonder, like, if at any other point someone would have tried to talk to her about the lies, or tried to talk to other people, warn anybody about the kind of person she was. I mean, warned Reagan.
And I think this is where potentially Taylor's family and mother may have more liability there. And, it's like, this is your child that's going on. And like, this is a parental thing at the end of the day. It's like, if your child is lying, especially as early as high school, when you still have some influence over them, like this is an extreme case of what can happen, of course, but like, this is something that is incredibly important to human development and being a productive part of society, and it is integrity. And somebody who pathologically lies their way through life and lies in the ways that she did is just it never ends well. It
No.
just never ends well. And yeah, it's just like it's like there's almost no words to even, you know, surmise all of this and in any way, shape, or form. And you know, I feel incredibly just devastated for Reagan's family and having to go through that and having to see that and having to, you know, losing a daughter and a granddaughter and, you know, to such a monster is I don't think any of us can even begin to comprehend the pain and suffering that's caused. I hope they're doing okay. And, you know, there's definitely been some semblance of justice served in this case. And I'm glad I mean, Taylor made it pretty easy to put all the evidence together, but I'm glad that they've stuck to their guns here and not let her win any appeals. And, you know, it seems like this is going to go through at some point. And I think that's what should happen at the end of the day. I mean, it doesn't seem like she's shown any remorse, has taken any accountability for anything she's done in her life, continues to lie, continues to hurt people. And, you know, there were some jailhouse calls or whatever released. You know, I was listening to her mom, and it seems like her mom's just kind of like doting over her and like sending her money and not, you know, kind of like trying to parent a little bit, but it's like it's too late now.
It's too late, and now's not the time to try to step up.
No,
no, it's done.
Her fate is sealed, and you know, she's gonna face accountability one way or another, and you know, in her own belief system, I think she's gonna be judged. You know, if you believe in God and believe in that sort of that concept, I mean, she's gonna stand before her creator and be judged. And I don't think anybody can take her word for it at this point. So who knows? I don't know. I think this is definitely one of the worst cases I ever covered ever. It's absolutely horrific. But I think that's where we're going to wrap up things today here. Thank you for being here. Definitely let us know your thoughts. Have you seen Maternal Instinct? What are your thoughts? Do you think the punishment's just in this case? And what else could she have been lying about? It seems like she lied about literally everything in her life.
Every facet.
And there's really nothing else to say. But we'll be back next week with another one. Thank you for being here. Lights out, everybody.